And so, and you could use Photoshop. I just thought, this sketch program can do. And in fact, inside of Illustrator, you can actually export out CSS and things like that too. I just, yeah, in Photoshop you can too. I just haven't done it in Photoshop. I've seen it in Illustrator, but not in Photoshop. I haven't done it in Photoshop. Where was I at? Oh, we're going to finish with this book. Okay, so let's finish where we left off last class as far as the responsive book that we were talking about. My first point is kind of rehashing what we discussed last class. Oh, there it is. In that, this book is kind of going over how you would take a layout like you saw me making in Sketch, or a layout like you made in Photoshop, and export that, or not necessarily export, but remake it inside of CSS and HTML and graphics. And so that's why when they're doing these calculations that you see is when they're making the responsive boxes, right? And we were measuring the boxes in M spaces, right? What they're what they're doing is calculating from the Photoshop comp that they have here, as you can see here, it's 566 is the blog area, and over here is the side, the A side, we'll call it, the 331. And so I just wanted to point out, why are they making these calculations in the book? And again, the reason why they're making the calculations in the book is because they're going off of a Photoshop comp that was measured in, of course, pixels. So how do I take these pixels and make them into CSS? That's sort of what this book is about. Let's sort of start where we left off. So you kind of hopefully understood the basics, what we did at the very beginning. And if we scroll down, I think we kind of left off somewhere around here, didn't we? I think it was right around here. Okay, so in this case, they have a blog, which is part of, and if you're looking at this code right here, this blog is actually a div tag that they're building. Okay, so instead of using pixels, we want to express the blog, which is a div, with a width of 900 pixels in proportional terms, specifically describing it as a percentage of the width of the containing element. And this is where our beloved formula, again, the target divided by the context equals the result. Okay, so in this case, oops, it jumped on me here. I guess I can't be between two chapters. Hold on, I'm close. We already know that our target pixel width for a blog that is 900 pixels is defined in our markup, right, in the Photoshop file. What we want is to describe that width in relative terms as a percentage of the blog's containing element. Since blog is nested within the page element, remember the page element is the big one that is in this example. Our context is namely 960 pixels, the width of the page, as was designed in the markup. So let's divide our target, which is the blog, which is 900 pixels, by 960, which is the big box, and you get 0.093, and we're left with the result of 0.9375. Doesn't look like much, but again, to move the decimal place, and you get 93.75%, which you could drop directly into there. So if you were measuring a box, you can do it in percent. And if you remember, we were also using M spaces, right? Okay, so of course percentage as well as M space would be fluid design. So just remember, this is how they're calculating, and the reason why they're using these numbers is these numbers are coming from the Photoshop comp that they have, and so on. Just as we did in the typesetting exercise, we left a formula as a comment off to the right. Again, this is sort of how you can put it in your code so that you can come back and remind yourself of what you have done. I'm trying to scroll down here. Let the formula go right. And then, of course, here's sort of the pixel way of it. So they would want to go and change it from pixels to percentages or ems. Again, the blog will be on the left side, so it's float left, and the other, which is the other box that's on the right side, is float right. So you can have two things next to each other, at least in the desktop one. They haven't done any media queries yet. But hopefully you understand that. In fact, what you probably should do, at least with this book, I was thinking probably the best thing you could do is just try and recreate a sample that kind of with the concepts that they're covering in this book, and make your own sample so that you know how to do it. You can just use colored boxes. Remember the sample that we did before spring break? I just used colored background, right? Colored background to change it. You just make colored divs. But you should, you know, this would be a good exercise for you to understand what they're talking about, is how they're converting these pixels to percentages or ems. And here they go through the whole thing. I'm not going to go through it all, but you can actually see how they're calculating, again, divided by there, and you're getting your result, and so on. So I'm not going to go over that. Can't ventilate. So they also talk about the columns and the padding between the columns. And so they go into some detail about that, how there's 48 pixels between each of the columns, I think it was, 48 pixels. In our comp, there's 48 pixels of space between our headline and the left edge of the container. Now so in order to make the padding for our boxes, they go through and talk about how to calculate that. Of course, you don't want pixels there. You want it to be a percentage. And if you look at it, and let's open up the sample file that they sent. I know there's a sample file somewhere. Hold on. I downloaded it somewhere. Here it is. So I'm not sure which one is the correct one yet. So again, they're talking about the space between here and here, I believe. The left margin is 48 pixels, and of course we don't want it to be 48 pixels. They want it to be a percentage that is scalable. So in the reading, they go through on how to calculate that. They talk about it. There you go. And they show you how to put it in, which translates into padding. And there you go. Okay, so they talk about doing things like that. And here it is right here again. They're talking about that. I don't know. I'm just going to move on. They have some nice thing. Let's get to images. So I'm going to jump down to chapter images. I'm sure you can review the way that they're calculating the boxes. So in this book, they do talk specifically about images and how to make responsive images. Of course, we've already looked at how to make an image that scales, right? We put in the width of 100%, right? Well, they actually, discourage using just width, but they want you to use max width. Okay, so in this chapter in the book is specifically geared towards max width, and then the other main concept that they have in this book is how to do the overflow for an image, so that if you want to crop the image, okay, if you've never used overflow, it's where you can have a div that's, the div is larger than the content that's inside it, and how does it deal with content that's larger than the div, basically is what overflow is. And in fact, you can actually put a scroll bar by using scroll bar true, I think. Do not put the scroll, is it? There is a way to put a scroll bar on the overflow, right, if the content's larger than the box.
How do you get rid of that?
You can turn the scroll bar off and on. There is a way to turn the scroll bar on and off in the overflow. I can't remember the code. I think it's a true or a false maybe, or hidden. That's it. Very good, Miranda. It is hidden, yes. I think it's hidden. And something like that. Yeah. Okay, so let's review that again. Mostly what they want you to do in this example of this chapter is they talk about using there. So they talk about using different ways. If you haven't used a block quote, they kind of use that. So they're talking about different HTML elements.
Overflow scroll to get the
Scroll bar. Overflow scroll and then to hide it. Hidden. Okay, thank you.
And the default is visible, which means there's no scroll bar, but the div.
Yeah. Nothing fancy. Image element followed by a brief but descriptive caption wrapped in a B element. I'm actually appropriate. So they're talking about some HTML5, but of course, you know, most images. And the other thing they talk about is actually putting. So their example is this robot-looking image. Okay. And so the robot image is huge, but they want it to be in a kind of in this box right here. So if you look at this box, there's a box right here, a div tag, and they want to squeeze this image into that div tag. So that's what they're talking about here at the very beginning. Of course, to be fluid image, container. Well, that's good news. They got the image tag here, and then they use the max width of 100%. Okay. And they also, the nice thing about this book is that it actually links directly to the WC3 website of the code that they're talking about. So if you want to read more about the max width and how to use it in your div tag, the image again, image tag is if you click on it, it'll take you actually to, well, no, this doesn't take me, but one of the links I clicked on actually went to the W3. I don't know where this one's taking me. This is taking us to some examples. A medium image with a width of 100% and a max width equal to the actual image size. A medium image of max with 100%, no height set. They both say no height set. I don't know what the difference is. What's this? A very wide image contained in a paragraph with no styles applied. Okay. It's not doing anything. Oh, the one below is just scaling. Again, with just a width of 100%. This one is a width of 100% and max width equal to the actual image size. I'm not sure what that means. Let's try this one down here. Here's one with the overflow. A very wide image with overflow hidden applied to its container. So it's not doing any scaling. It's just, this is a very wide image floated right with an overflow hidden applied to its container. So as you can see, it's actually cropping this one. Yeah. So I guess that's their samples. Let's see, let's move on. Oh, they also say that you can use this for video as well. So maybe that's, I think one of the problems we had when we were doing a video demonstration at the very beginning of the class was how to make a scalable video. And so, at least their sample here, they talk about using an embed video object. Like video and other rich media, in fact, we can beef up our section. So they do talk about a video using max width. Has anybody tried video and using max width as 100% to make a scalable video? I don't know about YouTube, right? Maybe if it's
no,
in
YouTube is iframe. It's different.
Yeah.
I made a width 100% for YouTube iframe.
Width of 100%. I think they're more talking.
Iframe is kind of dodgy when it comes to that.
I think they're talking embedded video, like a video you would have on your server, and that, you know what I mean.
Work.
That will work just fine for scalability. If you, instead of using YouTube, you can actually put your own video on there. And of course, what format would I make my video for my website in? MP4. But which compression? What's the name? What's the number for the compression, Daniel? Remember, you were in the video class. H.264, right? So if you're making your own videos for your website and you're going to embed them and program them yourself, you can use the video. There's a tag for video in HTML5 as well, right? Usually, if I was going to make my own video, and here, let's look at that real quick. There is a software program that comes with Adobe. The compression, where is it? Where is it? Usually they have it as a separate file. I guess they don't have it as a separate program anymore. The what am I trying to say? Media Creator. You see anything called Media Creator? No. I don't know why they don't have it. Uh-oh. So just let me get a video in here of some kind. There he is. Okay, so again, whoosh. Hold on. It's too loud. Okay, so if I was going to put my own video in my website without using YouTube, the compression I would use is under Export Media. So I have a video, it hasn't been edited, whatever. But if I go under Export Media in a video editing program like this is Premiere, over here you have H.264 is the one I would standard use. Right now this is in high definition, so it's going to be 1920 by 1080. But of course you can actually change the size of the window if it doesn't need to be that big. If you're not, let's say you wanted to have a little video that's on your website, right? You can go into the options down in the program here under video, and you can actually change the dimensions here by typing in whatever you want, making it smaller. Maybe you want it to be only 1024, that's full screen there. Maybe you're making it for the video background, like I did show you the guy who's going to speak on April 28th, right? We looked at his video, his website, right? Remember the guy who's going to speak on April 28th? Marlowe? I think we looked at it. It was in...
Oh, we saw his site, but we didn't see him.
No, but what I meant is you saw a site, neeba.agency. And you'll see he has the video right here, right? This video would be probably, well, it's a scalable too, look. Okay, this is not probably coming from YouTube. This is probably coming from his server, right? This is a video that's on his server. So instead of using YouTube, you can put, and look, it's scalable too. The reason why you might want to shrink the window down is that it might make it a little smaller, but I've noticed that making the window smaller doesn't really help too much when it comes to H.264. So right here, again, the compressor is H.264 right here. That's probably the smallest file you're going to get. Don't use MPEG-4. This is kind of older. This is the more modern version of MPEG-4, because you might be, oh, MPEG-4. Don't use this one. This is the older version. Use this H.264 as the most up. That's what YouTube uses. And then once you choose H.264, there's also a bunch of other options as far as different frame rates, and there's a pull down menu. You can use the YouTube. I tend to use just the YouTube settings right here. So I tend to use the YouTube settings, and then another thing you can do is that you can adjust the actual settings down here for quality. And if you reduce the quality, because if you look at this one, it's really compressed. You know, look at these people are all blocky, right? This is not high definition, and you see a lot of block. And what I mean by blocky is you can tell it's been compressed a lot because, of course, it's playing on a web page. You want it to be compressed a lot. It's highly compressed video. I mean, it looks good, but it's highly compressed. You can tell. And you got your drone shots. I love the little drone shots. We need to get ourselves a drone so we can do shots like that here at school. We're going to get one over the summer. How about that for next year? Okay, so I just wanted to point that out again. Putting the video on your server, compressing it yourself. Again, the extension is going to be MP4, and you can probably scale it then just like you see on the Marlowe's website. Okay, let's get back to where were we at? We're still in this book. So they talk a little bit about how to deal with images with a max width. Just by including the max width of 100%, we've prevented our image from escaping its flexible container. On a relative note, I love max width 100%. Yes?
When you do that, do you put another width attribute or just the max width?
You can just use the max width. On the image tag, inside the div, the container. So it'd be whatever the name of the container is and the image compound those two together and then use max width. He loves using max width. We're gonna get a T-shirt that says it. I love max width. Uh-oh, that could be a little. Okay, you get the idea. So that's what they're talking about here. So it's scalable, right? Okay, and then they have another image that they talk about as far as there he loves max width again. And then they do talk about the video, and then they do just use width of 100%, but they have max width. And they talk about Internet Explorer and how Internet Explorer doesn't like max width. But of course, who uses Internet Explorer 6 and below? You know, I wouldn't even worry about Internet Explorer anymore. I don't know. My mother probably uses Internet Explorer, yeah. She's a grandmother too, so I don't know. I don't know. They have some ways to get around old Internet Explorer, but I just jumped from that chapter. I didn't even read this part. I just jumped. I'm not even going to read that part about Internet Explorer. I'm going to move on. So I jumped past that. They do talk about this alpha image loader for that, and I jumped past that because that's Internet Explorer and stuff. I did talk about the flexible background, and I did read this part where they talk about the flexible background and how to deal with that. Again, with the background image, you do have a lot of ability to repeat and position, as well as they actually talk about rotating images in the background. They do have the ability to rotate an image. Here, I haven't tried that, but they do talk about rotating right here. Originally, the background graphic was simply centered at the top of the content area, then tiled vertically. Was it rotated? Maybe not rotated. Maybe I'm thinking that they tiled it. Don't know. But then they talk about flexible backgrounds and how to calculate the backgrounds. They do talk about that. And they go into some detail about that. Flexible backgrounds. And then they go over the overflow again. This one they're talking about cropping with the overflow of hidden, so that as it goes down, you'll notice it does crop the image. See that? And so if we look at the sample, where's this? Oh, not that one. This one. Oh, this one doesn't have the robot in it. Let's find the one with the robot in it. This doesn't have the robot. There is one with a robot in it, in there. And if we scroll down, there's no robot in this one either. No. Okay. I lost the robot. Here, you'll see it cropping. See how it's cropping? This would be the overflow of hidden, right? But then it jumps. Did you see that? So they're using media queries here, but they're actually, instead of scaling the image, it's being, see how it's right here? Notice how it's being cropped until it gets to a certain point, and then it jumps. Okay, so that's sort of, it's worth noting that both the overflow and max width approach to flexible images are actually pretty robust. And so instead of using the max width, they were using overflow of hidden, and it will crop, crop the image. See, just like you saw there. So it's just a different way. And they talk about, well, why you might not want to use that here. And then they move on. Then they go into the media query in this book of how to do the media queries. Their media query, they talk about using both the screen, right? We did talk about that, I think, last class. Jennifer was showing something about screen too, right? Remember last class you had screen in yours, right? So they do talk about using both screen and, hold on, let me get to the code. So again, they talk all about the different media queries. Of course, we got all, braille, emboss, handheld, print, projection, and then screen is the one for that. And then they talk a little bit about how to use media queries, you know, like this way, and this way. And they use the @import option for the different sizes. And so here we go. It's a media query. They use the screen and minimum width of 1024 to change. Okay, so again, the media query can have an and in there. And they talk about that. Here's one way you can write it where it switches to this CSS when this media query is met, right? They also talk about orientation, right? So, you know, they make fun of Apple and how they, you know, once the iPhone came out, we had to start dealing with the flipping and rotating of the orientation. But the very first versions of the iPhone didn't have it built into it or something like that. They did talk about that. Again, there could be landscape and portrait, or is it landscape and what? Landscape and portrait, yeah. So here's the list of the media query options that you can test for. And of course, mostly we're doing width. Height, I'm not really sure. And of course, color. And then they have this scan. So it has min and max preferences. So all these have a min and max. And then they talk about the different size screens. This book is a little older, probably. Of course, we probably have more modern cell phones now. I don't know, they keep changing. So they just go over how to do the media query, and they talk about that. I don't know. You can read it. Again, they're going with screen and max width, and then they write the code. And then to go over how to calculate for the different media queries. And different ways of doing it. I don't know. Then talk about samples. Then the last chapter is why you should be doing responsive design. And then they talk about mobile first. They talk about reading this. Sure, there isn't. I guess these are sample pages. I don't know what these are. I guess that designer has his own mobile first. Not sure. I think you should, though, review the book and see what information it can give you. They do talk about JavaScript here at the end, working with a slideshow, it looks like, and how to make that flexible. Then he thanks everybody who helped him. Some videos. Let's see if we can see what the videos they have. I don't know what this video is. Not sure what that is. Afraid of that video. I don't know. Any ideas you have for making something that you want to talk about? Miranda, you want to show your mobile site?